Okay, I think we can get started. Looks like the numbers have stabilized. So my name is Ryan Mallon. I'm the Marketing and Comms Manager here at the Faculty of Medicine. Not sure why I'm not on screen. Let me quickly fix that. There you go. Thank you very much for joining this webinar about living in Brisbane. So I'll quickly introduce you to the panel members. Susie, can I start with you? Can you say a quick hello?
Hello.
Pranav,
Hey.
Shannon,
Hey.
and Kira,
Hi, guys.
and Savannah.
Hi, everyone.
And then we've also got Irene in the background, but Irene, if you say hello, so she'll be looking after the chat.
Hello, everyone.
Great. So we will start the session with a formal presentation from Susie, just about moving to Brisbane. Susie, can I hand over to you?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Susie, and I'm part of the medical student support team. So we will be here to support you before you arrive, as you arrive and transition into the program. So I'm going to share my screen. So just give me a moment while I get that set up for you. How's that looking? Can you see that?
Yep, that looks great.
Great. Okay. So yeah, we know that, moving to a new place can feel really daunting, particularly moving to a new country. So hopefully some of your questions will be answered throughout this presentation and from the panel. So let's get started, I guess. So our team is made up of 3 people, myself, Jacinta, and Zoe. And so we're specifically dedicated to supporting medical students in the program throughout their journey. So you'll get to know our faces pretty well. And we've got a really exciting sort of transition program. So something really to look forward to when you arrive. So there's lots of opportunities to engage and connect throughout your first few weeks as you get settled. As you can see here, during weeks 1 to 4, there's a welcome ceremony. You'll have introductions to the program, to the different areas that you'll be studying in. You'll get to meet some of the staff, other international students, as well as domestic students. So really a chance to get settled and get to know people. And we'll be conducting information sessions throughout that as well to help you get settled. So like I said, a really exciting time. These are 2 of the important, I guess, websites to familiarize yourself with. So don't feel like you need to take notes or take any of this down, because I'll share the slides and they can be distributed out to you. But here are 2 websites that UQ has. So that first one is specifically for international students. So that covers things like your visa, your overseas health cover, preparing for and arriving in Brisbane. So your sort of essentials to consider. Some of you might have seen that already. And then there's one for starting at UQ. So that's going to be about, setting up your Outlook and getting your passwords ready and all that sort of UQ specific stuff. So yeah, make sure you check those out. So a bit of a checklist before you arrive. So some of you will have ticked some of these off already, and I will go into more detail about them. But first things to do are accept your offer for UQ and apply for your student visa if you haven't done that already. Activate your student account, which you can get guidance on through that website that I've just mentioned. And really familiarize yourself with the key dates. So when do things start at the start of the year? Plan to be here at least, 2 weeks before generally is what we recommend. So make sure you're really familiar with those enrollment dates and make sure you enroll in your course. That's pretty important. And we can support you in that if you're having problems and you want to do that when you first arrive. I'm going to talk more about planning your finances and accommodation, because moving to a new country can feel a little bit uncertain around those things, particularly in this climate. So we'll talk more about what you can do before and when you arrive around that. We offer a free pickup service, so you can book a free collection service from the domestic or international airport. You can book that 3 business days in advance, and they pick you up and take your luggage, and you get safely to your accommodation. I'm also going to cover what to pack. Some of you will have a bit of a shock to arrive in Brisbane in January. It will be hot, it will be humid. I think I have an Oshner student at the start of the year who sort of arrived and was a bit shocked to find all her fruit and vegetables were going off. You know, she was leaving them out in her apartment. It's like, if you haven't lived in a humid place, things go in the fridge. So it can be a little bit of an adjustment. In terms of your accommodation, the UQ Accommodation Service has some really good tips on their website. So on their UQ Living website, there's lots of different options. We do recommend, if possible, to organise your accommodation prior to your arrival. It can be competitive in Brisbane to find a rental, a private rental in particular, and that can take some time. So having a plan A and a plan B is probably a good idea. I'm sure we'll hear more from the panel about their experiences with accommodation, but there's lots of different options. So there's off-campus providers, residential colleges, student accommodation. We've got a UQ Rentals database that has approved accommodation providers, as well as, you know, you're obviously welcome to go private rentals. That's like realestate.com and things like that. And if that's not possible, you can potentially arrive, have some short stay accommodation while you're searching for something more permanent. I would say that UQ is pretty well connected in terms of like transport options. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but you know, there's a bus and a ferry and train and things like that. So they're all going to be options for you. If you're living particularly in inner city suburbs, you could walk or bike. And here's just some information about I guess, resources for when you are considering renting. So you're welcome to check out any of these websites to get an idea about your renter's rights, because that can vary, obviously, greatly country to country. And Q Stars, that's a really great one. They offer free independent advice, and we often refer to them for students who are having any issues with their tenancies while they're here. Again, a little bit more about the airport reception. Just make sure you book 3 business days in advance. If you're going really far, there may be additional fees, but if you're in the Greater Brisbane area, my understanding is that it's free. So definitely take advantage of that. Once you've booked your flights, you can book that straight in. So about planning your finances. So this one is going to be important to consider. So we really recommend that students do have a budget and consider how much things are going to cost and map that out, particularly if you've got student loans and things like that, that you're going to have to be allocating over your weeks and months while you're here. There's a good website called moneysmart.gov.au, and that's got lots of resources and tools that you can use and gives you an idea about the cost of things, I guess. Initial costs that you need to consider. So if you're going to have any temporary accommodation on arrival, you need to budget for that. If you're renting, so generally what we do here is that you have your bond, which is a 4-week rent amount that gets kept for your tenancy, and then you pay 2 weeks rent in advance. So you've got to plan to have 6 weeks rent ready and available to get a new property, to get a property. And then there's like connection fees potentially. Sometimes that's included in the rent, but good to budget for just in case. And then I guess setup costs around like furniture and things like that. So depending on what your accommodation is, sometimes, you know, certain accommodation units or student accommodation are furnished, but generally if you're going out into private rentals, you'd need to provide some of that furniture. But there's options around like Facebook Marketplace and IKEA and things like that in which you can get cheap furniture. So, but obviously take that into consideration, you know, especially if you're going to be living alone or just with one other housemate. Ongoing costs, probably similar to what you consider now. So your rent, your utilities, so gas, electricity, phone, internet, they're all going to be ongoing costs for you. Any setup, equipment costs that you're going to need for the program, and then food, transport, and recreation. So obviously this is all going to be in Australian dollars. We don't really do tipping here, so that'd be quite different to what you do at home. But here's just an idea, I guess, an up-to-date sort of snapshot that the UQ finances that pages have provided around like costs to expect, how much things, and you can go and have a look at, you know, milk and groceries. What's the average cost in Australian dollars that's going to set you back each week? Again, it's just useful to know in advance, isn't it? So you can use a budgeting tool. I think generally students we find students do pretty well with their budgeting week to week. It's really only when unexpected financial costs or hardships come up that they can get into a little bit of trouble. But we do actually have like budgeting workshops as well offered by UQ that you're welcome to attend if that's of interest to you. So moving on to your overseas health cover. So our preferred provider is Allianz. They're really fantastic. They've got a really great app and they also have on-campus support. So at St. Lucia, you can book an appointment with a rep to meet and talk through any questions you have or issues that you're experiencing. So it's a really great service. We've also got like a GP practice here on campus, and we can provide referrals for doctors that don't have a gap between, you know, your overseas health cover and what you have to pay. So yeah, definitely have a look into that if you haven't already got your policy. Thinking about what to pack when you come over. Again, remember it's going to be summer, so it's going to be really hot and humid. You need to make sure you have your important documents, so your visa, your passport, transcripts, you know, hard copies of things like that. Essential medication and prescription. I would say make sure you check out like the DHA website, Australian government website, about limits around prescription. I think that it can, you know, take a few weeks to get set up. So do bring, you know, a bit of supply if you do have medication and things like that. But just, I think there are limits. So make sure you check that out. Yeah, prescriptions, and then just some tips there about what to consider. I think that Australia has pretty strict quarantine laws. You know, we're an island, so we do have to be careful about what comes in. So potentially familiarise yourself with that sort of thing before you arrive. So living in Brisbane, I'm quite biased towards Brisbane. I absolutely love living here. I lived away for a long time in the UK and have only recently returned. So I feel like I'll never stop appreciating the beautiful climate, and it's a very livable city. It's really safe. I think that the climate really encourages a real active lifestyle. So again, I think the panel will probably talk more to their experience of what it's been like in Brisbane. But yeah, I'm very biased, but I'm a big fan. And beautiful, that's a picture of the Brisbane River there. So yeah, lots of things to do and see and visit. Just briefly about our student services that we offer. So we have a lot of free services for students when they're here. So we have free counselling services for students available, again, accommodation services. We do have some financial hardship pots of money for when those unexpected things do come up. We can support you in trying to get some funding around things like that. There's chaplaincy, learning advisors, there's mentoring, which I'll talk a little bit to, and the UQ Union and UQ Sexual Misconduct Unit as well. There are also scholarships available. They work a little bit differently to potentially what you've got at home. So here the scholarships are pots of money that are available that you can apply for depending on what your circumstances and the criteria are. But again, once you get here, we can provide some guidance around that, and they open at different times of the year. So mentoring, we actually run a mentoring program. So year ones and year twos can get connected, and year threes and year fours can get connected. So I would definitely encourage you to consider that, because it can really help with the transition as you get settled, to talk to somebody who's lived through it and has experience, basically. So yeah, a great program there. Other things around making new friends, there's UQ Mates program, there's UQ Life, there's lots of introductory events that you'll have a chance to get to know some peers and some new people. And yeah, can't speak highly enough of UQMS, so the UQ Medical Society. They have amazing social activities and events. They've got year level reps, they're very engaged. So a really good idea to join if you can. You get access to their resources and things like that. So that's also highly recommended for medical students. And last one is working while studying. So some of you might be considering getting a part-time job or a casual job for when you're here. If you're on a student visa, you can work a certain number of hours per fortnight. We do run a workshop at orientation around that sort of thing, and there's support through the UQ Union around job preparation in your resume and doing those applications, because obviously it can look a little bit different if you're not familiar with the Australian system. But I do know lots of students who have great part-time and casual jobs that just give them that little bit of extra money to enjoy their time while they're here. And often that's sort of like retail or hospitality or customer service and things like that. So that's all from me. That was quite a lot of information. So feel free to put any questions that you might have in the chat, and we'll get around to them as part of this process. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Okay, so let's get to know our student panel. So we're going to go around the panel and kind of find out about their journey to medicine, where they're from, and then one thing about Brisbane that they weren't expecting. So we might start with our third-year medical student. Pranav, can we start with you, please?
Yeah, no worries. So, hi everyone. I'm Pranav. I'm a third-year medical student, and I'm originally from Calgary, Canada. So I did my undergraduate degree at the University of Calgary in health science, and then I applied all over Australia for medicine, and I ended up getting my UQ offer, geez, 3 years ago, this last August, and I decided to make my way here. One thing about Brisbane I wasn't expecting was just the weather. I expected it to be humid, but especially in January and February, it is quite miserable as someone from Canada. But the rest of the months from like March to October are like almost pure bliss for a Canadian, because everyone else is jacketed it up and I'm finally just in like very casual clothes. So it works great. So that's me.
Thank you. Savannah, can I hand it over to you?
Hi, so I'm Savannah. I'm a year one medical student. So I graduated from Tulane last May. I majored in neuroscience and anthropology. And then the 6 months before med school started, I worked as a pediatric medical assistant and moved over here in January and have absolutely loved it. One thing about Brisbane that I wasn't expecting was just how active Brisbane really is. There's tons of run clubs, there's rock climbing gyms, there's rowing, there's a ton of different options. So I found that really awesome.
Great, thank you. And I was actually in New Orleans last week, and it was hot and humid, so very similar to Brisbane. Shannon, can I hand over to you?
Yeah, hi. Hi everyone. I'm Shannon. I'm a first year medical student. I'm from Singapore. Um, Coming to Brisbane. So I studied in Singapore all my life. And then I actually came to UQ for undergrad in 2020. So it was during COVID. So because of that, I didn't get out much. I wasn't here for that long. After that, I worked for a bit in research. And now I'm back here after applying to Australian medical unis and eventually picking UQ. One thing about Brisbane that I was not expecting, not gonna lie, when I got here, I completely forgot the closing hours of things here. So, when I got here, I wanted to reopen my bank accounts and, set up my phone lines again. And please do those early because the banks close quite early here. So that's one thing I'll say. Yeah.
That's a great piece of advice. Kira.
Hi guys, I'm Kira. I'm a first year medical student. I did my undergrad at Duke in North Carolina. And then I actually took 2 years off of school before coming back for med school. So I was working as a medical assistant or a medical scribe in an emergency department in New Orleans, in Louisiana, before coming to Brisbane this past January. Kind of similarly, my thing about Brisbane that I was not expecting was how much of a morning city it is. You are up early, things open early, and so people are out and about. The city kind of starts at like 6 a.m., which is great. It's really fun. There's kind of stuff going on all the time, which is nice.
Great, thank you, Kira. I might stay with you. So we're kind of going to jump into our next topic, and it's around accommodation. So can you share what a living arrangement is, how you organize your accommodation, and maybe any suburbs you could recommend?
Yeah. So I live like right on the border of South Brisbane and West End, um, which is a really kind of awesome area. There's tons of little bars, restaurants. Grocery store is like 5 minutes away from where we live. And the bus stop, it's super well connected. So tons of bus lines kind of run through there, as well as ferry stops on the river and things as well. Um, I am in a private rental. So I live with one other roommate. Um, and we kind of found that I got my offer letter last July. Um, and you do not need to do this as early as I did, but I kind of got my offer letter and started sending emails to buildings and rental places saying, hey, I'm a medical student. I'm going to be moving to Brisbane in January. If you have anything available then that you know of, let me know. And then I heard back from one of the buildings. They sent me an email and said, hey, we have this apartment coming on in January. Would you be interested? And so my roommate and I were able to kind of get that. That was definitely early. That was like the earliest of any of our friends have reached out to people. I had had some interesting experiences trying to find rentals in New Orleans, and I think had a little bit of PTSD. And so just decided to get it over and done with as soon as possible. And so yeah, that's kind of how I found my situation.
Great, thank you. Shannon, what's your living arrangement?
So I currently live in an external student housing. So I live at Escape currently. So I live at Escape, one of the escapes in the Toowong area. And honestly, this area is one of the areas that I would recommend, you know. There's Toowong Village really close by. There's multiple supermarket options that you can choose from. There's a food street down the road when for nights when you're lazy to cook, or honestly, if you have no time to cook. And also there's like a train station, there's buses to school. It's very close to school as well. I think there's around two or three buses that actually run to school, so you have great options. There's also a ferry to the city, so there's multiple options. How I go about organizing this? So I actually got my offer kind of late, a lot later than the rest of everyone. So I got it at the end of October. And during that time, I was freaking out. I was like, oh my God, I don't think I can get any place to live and stuff like that, because everyone was telling me how, you have to find it 3 months or 4 months in advance and stuff like that. But honestly, the process was kind of chill. Um, I went online, I started looking at student accommodations because I didn't really know anyone coming into this. So I wasn't comfortable with like sharing a place yet. So to add on to that, I live by myself in the studio. So I just went to Scape, and not gonna lie, I just picked the closest one to school. Please do not make the mistake I did, because I did not check the prices in between the different Scapes. So please do that. And yeah, organizing that was pretty smooth actually. Like they allowed me to do like a video call tour of the place, and they even allowed me to like pick a unit that I want and stuff like that. So all of that was pretty good and very smooth. Yeah, and aside from my suburb, like which I live in Toowong, by the way, which is very close to school, aside from my suburb, I'll recommend anywhere in like maybe town area and stuff like that. Like you can check out areas like South Bank. That's pretty popular among us. And honestly, like if you look at the bus line 66, a lot of the stops on there are pretty convenient to get to school as well. And yeah, they're all pretty good locations. They're all close to grocery stores, aside from where I live, which is Toowong. So yeah.
Great, thank you. And I think Irene has put a link to Escape in the chat if you want to check that out. Savannah, can I hand it over to you?
Yes. So hi, I'm very similar to Kira. We live about 2 blocks from each other. But so I live in a private residence as well. I live in one of the ARIA buildings, kind of on the cusp of South Brisbane, West End. Cannot recommend it more. I absolutely love my living arrangement. I live with one other UQ Ochsner student. We met on Facebook through the chats, and decided to live with each other. I absolutely love it. It's 2 bed, 2 bath. It's great. We have a swimming pool and a gym and everything within our building, which is really nice. It was a little bit of a stressful kind of experience trying to find accommodation. We emailed a lot of people. We started early, which was really good. Just looking, creating a list of places we wanted to live. I emailed a lot of people, just the building managers. I talked to a lot of the second years, which recommended the standard, which is where I'm living now, and emailed their building manager, and kind of got an idea of when they were releasing new apartments, options. So we signed in late November and for an apartment that started kind of late December. And so I had to pay a couple months, like a month of rent when we weren't here, but I really liked it because then I didn't have to get any temporary living once I moved here. I didn't see the apartment before I moved in, but it being an ARIA building, and having a lot of people live here, kind of took the risk and it paid off. I definitely recommend anywhere along the 66. I definitely think South Brisbane, West End, and the CBD are really great. Of course, I'm partial to South Brisbane, West End. There's a grocery store right next door. It's very walkable, a lot of good study spots, and a lot of good gyms right next door. So I highly recommend it.
Thank you. There is a question in the chat about the ARIA building. Is it competitive to get a place?
I would say it is a little competitive. However, there are so many ARIA buildings and a lot of them are opening up. So there's also a lot of second years that live in ARIA buildings. So you can definitely like reach out, and there's a lot of people leaving their leases. So they definitely have lots of openings. So definitely email the building managers and get an idea. It is a little bit expensive. But again, with gyms and pools and everything included, it's been really nice. And we have a parking garage and we get a parking spot, and we sell our parking spot per month to kind of offset some expenses, which is really nice. And so our utilities are completely covered by the parking spot.
We do
Yeah.
have sorry.
Oh, sorry. I just also live in an ARIA building. And it was a little bit competitive to get it, but they're also really good about if you email the building manager of one building and another spot opens up in a different building, they'll like pass you along. So that's actually how I got mine, is I had emailed the building manager for a different building, and they emailed me back saying, we don't have anything opening up in our building, but this other building does. Do you want that one? So they're pretty good about like communicating with each other also, to make sure that you can figure something out.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess there's another question in there about,
Mhm.
have you guys had any problems with the building, pests, issue, mold, thin walls?
I haven't. I haven't at all. The walls are a little thin, but I've never had an issue with it. I've never had any like noise complaints against any of my neighbors. It's been really great. I find it really clean. Again, all the like the pool and the gym is always well taken care of. We have like a sauna and a spa, and everything is really, really nice where I live, at least.
Just
Yeah.
living the dream.
Yeah, no, I haven't had any issues. We actually had, so my building's a new construction, so I had something that went wrong with one of the pipes, in my building, and they were awesome about coming and fixing it and, doing all of that kind of stuff. And like, we didn't have to pay for any of it. They covered all of it. So they've been really awesome.
Great, thank you. Pranav, I guess you've been here for 3 years now. So has your living situation changed from first year till now?
No, so I got here just after the Australian quarantine had lifted. So it was or like while it was in the process of lifting. So it was quite a different experience for me. What I ended up doing was, in general, and advice, like unless you are aware of the building or like know someone in Australia or like an upper year student, generally I'd recommend seeing the place yourself before you sign a lease if you're going to do a private rental. If you're doing student housing or external student housing, they're all pretty similar and all pretty safe, and they're definitely way easier to set up than a private rental. So I think I was one of like 6 people in my first year who didn't go for a private, who didn't go for student housing, barring the exception of people who knew some of the upper years. And so I came here. I actually shared an Airbnb with a few of the other Canadians who I managed to meet up through Facebook for a few weeks while we all went and searched for our housing. And I currently live in Wollongabba, which is an area to the east of the university. It's on the 66 bus line. It's next to the stadium. And there's a lot of like, I like it because it's about like 2 bus stops from uni, 2 bus stops from South Bank and CBD, which is sort of the main central area of the city, and all the bus networks and stuff connect there. But I'm also a 10-minute walk from the hospital I'm doing placements at, which is like the most important thing for me, because at 5 a.m. my brain is not working. And so when I have to go in for surgery or anything like that, not ideal. I like to have the shortest commute possible. And so I came here, I did the Airbnb for 2 weeks, and I went to inspections. It was ridiculously competitive at that time. Also because Brisbane did end up flooding soon after, so that period was very chaotic in the real estate. I've heard it's gotten a little easier, which is like nice. But yeah, sort of went to a bunch of different inspections, looked at a bunch of different places, and so I have an apartment by myself here. In terms of suburbs, I think sort of, yeah, around like the 66 bus route. But if you just Google Maps, the University of Queensland, you just follow like each side of the river up from that till they sort of connect in the middle. Anywhere in that range is generally fine because you're usually about like maximum 15 to 20 minutes away if you're on one of the direct bus routes. And then a lot of sort of the amenities in the city are in that region. Generally, you're never too far from a grocery store or anything like that. But in terms of like gyms, parks, markets, like restaurants, bars, anything like that, a lot of it is just sort of around that riverside area generally. And so I'd recommend sort of anything in that pathway, depending on like, what's in your budget or anything like that. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Great, thank you. Before we move on to the next topic, Susie, do you have anything you want to add about accommodation?
Just to mention a little bit more about what Pranav said, be about your learning community. So you'll be assigned a learning community. So take that into consideration when you're thinking about where to live, basically. But if you'll be able to see on a map all those inner city suburbs that the panel have mentioned are really well connected with transport routes, generally to the south hospitals. But yeah, just a consideration of your learning community, because that's going to be, from second year onwards.
Great, thank you. So the next topic is living expenses and budget. So Shannon, I might start with you. Can you kind of talk us through your monthly expenses, how you budget? How does living in Brisbane compare to your hometown, and the process of opening a bank account?
Okay, so monthly expenses wise, I'll be very transparent. So, monthly expenses, I would say per month, I would generally on average spend around 750 to 800. Um, I do cook myself I do cook at home as well. So like I try and like limit my budget through that. How do I budget? Well, when I got here, so this kind of relates to the next question of setting up a bank account. When I got here, I'm not sure if it's the same for everyone, but I set up kind of 2 linking accounts. So one savings account and a spending account. So it's very simple. Every month, my main pool of money is in the savings account, and I'll just transfer over to my spending. And that would be just the amount for my monthly expenditure. So for monthly expenses, all of that includes just living expenses. It does not include rent. And I would say like I leave like plus minus 100, $150 for like medical expenses in case, previous semester I got kind of sick and I had to spend a bit on medical. Not a lot though, because OSHC does cover consultations and stuff like that. However, if you want to see an external GP, you would probably have to pay consultation, but you can claim it. Um, And yeah, how is it compared to my hometown? So in general, like coming from Singapore, stuff is generally like food and transport is generally pretty cheap back home. I would say like food prices here were a bit of a surprise because I feel like they'll be on the higher side. However, like coming from back home, food prices were like you can get lunch for like $5, but I still think that it's pretty good. I invested in like an air fryer when I got here. So like going to Woolies, I would just buy I'm very lazy. So I'll just buy the ready-made seasoned chicken and I just chuck it in the air fryer and cook some rice, cook some veggies, and that'll be my dinner for like the next 2 days or 3 days or something like that. So it's honestly very easy. And yeah, process of opening a bank account, going back to that, I just went in the morning. It was a very easy process. Make sure to bring all your necessary documents. I would recommend like, double checking before you go, like your passport and stuff like that, and your COE as well, your certificate of acceptance. Um, and yeah, the people over there, at the bank were very helpful. So I opened a bank account with Combank, purely because it was the bank in the area that I was living at. So I figured that would make life a lot more easier, but I haven't had any occurrences where I had to go down to the bank to do anything else. So yeah, it was all good.
Thank you. Kira, what has your experience been like?
Yeah, I have a bank account through Combank as well. I set it up, I think, in the first like week that I was here. Super easy. I just went down and basically gave them my passport and my like acceptance letter. Um, and they were able to set it up for me. I have all of my loans just direct deposit into that bank account. Um, I found that that's easier for me to like manage in terms of budgeting if everything's in Australian dollars and I'm not trying to like convert back and forth between American dollars and um Australian. Um and so I just have everything in that account and I use my Common card the majority of the time. Um I think on average, it's pretty similar to what I think I was spending living in New Orleans. My rent's definitely a little bit more expensive. The rent's definitely like on the upper end of what kind of my budget was when we were coming in. Um, but it's been really manageable and we've been able to, still be able to travel and that kind of stuff a little bit as well. So I think that's been nice in terms of that kind of stuff.
Cool. Savannah?
Hi. So I actually have a little bit of a different kind of what I've been doing. So I had my loans deposited into my US account and I set up a Wise account. And so I took all of my money for the full semester because we get loan deposits per semester. And I put all of the money I need for rent and for utilities back when I was needing to pay them. And I put it all into a Wise account and that was separate. And I set a direct deposit to my building every week. So that kind of was able for me to like separate for this is money for rent and then this is money for food and everything else. I really highly recommend it. It's been really easy for me and Wise, had the best conversion rate and the best fees. And that's what I've been doing. And I really, really like it. It is a little different from, I believe, what most people do. I also opened a Westpac account, but I never used my Westpac account. I had a credit card with that gets like travel points and it has no foreign transaction fees. And so I use that and I just keep tabs on it. So I pay it off every week to make sure, I'm not going crazy with it. But I use that so I get points for all of the transactions I do. And if you open a travel credit card right before you move here, your expenses at the beginning are going to be a little bit more. So you might get like bonus points and stuff. So that's what I did. And I've really, really liked it. So it's definitely different from what most people do, but I, again, really enjoy it. It is a little bit difficult because when I buy something in Australian currency, in my brain, I'm kind of converting it to US, which is kind of a tricky game to play. But comparing to where I grew up in Pensacola, I feel, and in New Orleans, where I went to school, I feel like it's pretty similar. Rent is a little bit more expensive than what I was paying in New Orleans. But I feel like food and stuff is pretty similar. And for budgeting purposes, last semester I went a little over budget just with traveling and stuff. So I've had to rein it back in this semester. But everything's been going good. I when I get my loan, of course, take out my money for rent, and then I divide the amount left in my account per how many weeks until my next loan payment. I just kind of keep tabs on it. So if I go a little bit over on one week, then I know to kind of bring it back and spend a little bit less the other week. But yeah.
Great, thank you. Pranav, anything extra to add?
Not too much. I kind of did a mix of what Savannah did and what like Shannon here did. So I also have a Wise account. So I get my loans deposited in my Canadian account. And then I've set it up so when the exchange rate is at a favorable enough portion, it gets transferred to my Australian account using Wise. I do have a Combank account that I do use just because for some of the stuff I've done in Australia, it's beneficial to have sort of like another sort of legal ground hold account where you have like a physical bank and in terms of investments and stuff like that. Cost of living, pretty similar compared to my hometown. Everything has gone up like an insane amount in the years I've been here. Like in the 3 years I've been here, I'd say my expenses have gone up maybe 20 to 25% because that's how much like stuff has risen. And that's with me somehow unlocking secret negotiation skills with my real estate agent to not massively jack up my rent every year. I think compared to most of my friends, I've gotten off quite lucky with my rental increases. And then for the bank account, one thing I can say is that I set up my bank account and even my phone numbers in advance. So Combank lets you fill out a form with a lot of like the important documentation and stuff, and then you just go into the bank, and then it just speeds up the process a little bit. Still have to share your ID and stuff; it doesn't take too long. But again, banks here have like really awkward hours, especially in January, at the beginning of January, because they're still in holiday mode. So depending on, when you get here, it might be a bit tough to actually like get in to see a bank. I remember when we got here, I was quarantining in Sydney. I think we went to 6 different banks before one of them would take us in the beginning of January. But again, different times. And then, yeah, so I'd recommend doing that. And even just as an aside, if your phone is eSIM compatible, some of the phone networks let you set up in advance. You can also very easily set it up at the airport or in the city. But since we were landing in Sydney and not even in Brisbane, and like I didn't have anywhere to go and I might have to quarantine, stuff like that, I was like, let's just get this all done. So I landed, I turned on my data and started figuring everything out the moment I got here. But that's just me.
Great, thank you. Before we move on, Susie, is there anything extra you want to add?
Not really, but I can see a question in the chat just saying, may I ask when will the scholarships be issued every year? So like I said, scholarships here work probably differently to what you're used to. There are a list of scholarships that you can have a look on the scholarship website that are specific to medicine students. So there's sort of general scholarships and then those that are specific to medicine students. So you can have a look through those and have a look at the criteria. Often they're like pots, sort of small to medium pots of money to support you throughout your study. So they're not going to be to cover any amount of tuition fees, but it is, little pots of money that you can apply for if you meet the criteria throughout the year. Yeah.
Great, thank you. So the next topic is health and safety. So kind of, is Brisbane a safe city? The campus, and then what do you do to keep yourself healthy while you're here? Kira, can I start with you?
Yeah. I found Brisbane to be very, very safe. I feel like totally comfortable walking around. Like everywhere. I really like have not had an experience where I have felt like unsafe. And And so yeah, on campus and everything like that is great. There's people around a lot of the time. So even when you're out, early in the mornings or late at night, like there's always stuff going on in Brisbane. So I never feel like you're walking like alone on a street or anything like that. And so there's kind of people around constantly. On campus as well, there's always like events going on. There's always people, there's always things open. So really, really nice for that. The bus drivers are also awesome. So they're super nice. And so if you're riding a bus like later at night or earlier in the morning or something like that, and you're kind of by yourself, they'll watch for you and make sure that, you're kind of in the right direction of where you need to go and things like that. In terms of like medical stuff, I've mostly gone through the UQ Student Health. So there's a clinic on campus that takes obviously our like overseas health coverage and things like that. And that is all bulk billed. So that means that, we don't have to figure out anything in terms of like filing a claim and that kind of stuff. So it all just like goes through the clinic, and they have a website that you can just kind of sign up through there, and that's been really awesome. We also like our friend group has kind of had an experience where we had one of our friends who got, kind of pretty sick, and we had to go through private just to get her an appointment and things like that. And that's also all been really easy. That was, we had to pay upfront for coverage then, but then the hospital ended up filing a claim on her behalf and things. So didn't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff as well. And that was all covered from that perspective as well. And so, yeah, that's all been really easy. In terms of like exercise and things like that, there's a couple of like intramural leagues at UQ that are really fun. So Savannah and I play on the same soccer team. We had a game last night, so we play on this like I am soccer league with the undergrads, and there's teams from the law school, and there's teams kind of other teams from medical school. So things like that are really fun. There's a beach volleyball one. I know that they play like on courts down on campus and things like that. So definitely opportunities to kind of keep yourself active as well.
Thank you. Shannon, you said that you saw a doctor last year. What was your experience like?
So okay, previous semester I got pneumonia, which was not fun. And essentially I went to an external doctor because, at the time my symptoms were kind of bad. And one thing about the school clinic is that it's great, but sometimes because most of the students go to the school clinic, right? So the waiting time can be kind of long as well. So I went to a clinic here in Toowong and I saw a doctor here. For that, I don't think it was covered under OSHC for that particular clinic. So I just picked the closest and fastest clinic at that point of time. So at the time, I think I paid around $80 for consultation, and additional medications and tests were, so I had to take an X-ray and stuff like that. So for those as for those testings, it was free. It was mainly that I had to pay for the consultations and the medications. But aside from that, any other point of time when I was sick, I just set out an appointment in advance at the school clinic. And honestly, it was great. I went in, consultation was free. All you had to do is pay for medications at a school pharmacy. And that has been neat. So going on to what Kira said as well, I generally feel like on top of medical, I feel like Brisbane is a generally pretty safe city. You know, when I go to town and stuff like that, I haven't had any occurrences or anything like that. But obviously, if you're in a foreign place, keep your eyes peeled and stuff like that. But I honestly think that it's a very safe city. In terms of exercise, so coming to medicine, we have the med review. and I was part of the dance group in the Met Review, so that was good exercise as well. It's a good time to socialize. And I really like use the gym in my building. Aside from that, or if you're like me and you like to dance as well, there's like quite a number of dance schools in Brisbane that you can sign up for like classes whenever you're free, so that's very good exercise as well.
Thank you. Savannah, I'm just conscious of time, so I might add in a few questions from the other um, in addition. So can you talk a little bit about the public transport, kind of getting around Brisbane as well in your answer?
Yeah. So I've kind of exactly what Kira said. I find Brisbane and on campus very safe. There's a lot of good resources you can use. There's apps that you can put on your phones when you're walking on campus. If you ever feel unsafe, you can hit it. Security comes running. Really, I find Brisbane to be super safe. Never felt, concerned or anything walking at night or anything. I use student health, just the clinic on campus. Absolutely love it. I love the doctor I see. I've had a pretty good experience. Exercise. So again, I play on the soccer team, but there's a lot of different soccer, beach volleyball, basketball, med review, which is the dance. There's just a lot of local gyms like Pilates, everything like that. I find Brisbane super livable, very easy to get around. I don't have a car here. I know some people who do. I do bus and train and everything like that. If you want to go on like day trips and stuff, it takes a little bit longer to get out there on train than a car would, but I haven't had any issue with it. I personally don't think I need a car in the city. I really enjoy the public transport. It's super easy. I'm right next door to a bunch of different bus stops and train stops and everything like that where I live. So I really enjoyed it. Also, Brisbane is also really walkable. A lot of the times I can walk to cafes, to get groceries, to gyms, study spots, into the city, everything like that. So yeah.
Great, thank you. Pranav, anything more to add, or what do you do outside of Brisbane?
Yeah, so I've been here for a couple of years, so I've sort of explored a lot of around Brisbane, gone to the beaches, gone to the coast and stuff. But generally speaking, even in terms of health, like I try to keep as regular for gym schedule as I can. There are a lot of gyms in Brisbane, and depending on like what your style is, my favorite part is the gyms here are usually pretty empty, compared to back home at least in North America where there's like massive lines. Like at the gym I go to, I've never even had to wait to use like the bench press or anything like that. So because everyone is outside, and I also go at like 9 p.m. So you can figure out which one of those is the real reason. But yeah, no, I found Brisbane like a really nice city. There's a lot to do. Like I'll usually go out for dinner or something with my friends once or twice a week. Go to the gym regularly. And then like, when we have like our long weekends or anything like that, like, go to the Eka, go to the Gold Coast, go to Sunshine, something like that. There's enough that's close enough and pretty accessible by transit, especially right now. It's all 50 cents. So it's actually quite nice. Yeah, that's pretty much it, really.
Thank you. So I guess my next question, Kira, with the curriculum, and I guess it is a demanding course, the MD, do you find enough time to be able to do stuff outside of the curriculum?
Yeah. I think you definitely have to prioritize it. It is easy to kind of get sucked into like feeling like you have to do school all the time and things like that. I'll give you like the example from today. Um, so we have our like clinical exams at the end of next week. So we're kind of studying for those, starting to get things in, but then our friends also set up like a game night for tonight. So we're all gonna go to our friend's house, we're cooking dinner together and then gonna play like board games for a little bit and things like that. So I think for me, the biggest change about it was feeling like I had to schedule in like doing things with my friends a little bit more. Because I think when I was working or in college or in my undergrad, it was a little bit easier to be a little bit more spontaneous about it. But I think it's really important to kind of prioritize it because I do think you can get in your head about feeling like you have to be doing school all the time, and it's too stressful to do that. You got to have a time to like sit back, do nothing else, and things like that. I think also living with a roommate has been really helpful with that for me. I mean, I got really lucky and my roommate is like one of my best friends ever in the whole world. Um, so that's also really nice, is like we'll just get home from studying and we'll watch Love Island or Married at First Sight Australia, which is the best Australian TV show. I stand by that. It's so good. And things like that. And so, you know, just little things to like kind of help turn your brain off are really helpful.
Great, thank you. Savannah, so obviously moving to Australia, you probably didn't think you might come here. Have you been able to take advantage of the semester break to see the country?
Absolutely. So I've been really lucky. Our friend group, we definitely are a little bit of jet setters. We like to take weekends and do day trips, and all of that. We our first break, we went to Bali for a couple days. Before school even started, we got an Airbnb in Sunshine Coast with some people we just met that week. This weekend, we're going to Byron Bay. We've been able to really take advantage of Australia and the surrounding areas. I definitely recommend it. It is with school, you know, you have the pressure to kind of really just only do school, which is, of course, you need to prioritize it, but scheduling in different, you know, we will do like family dinners once a week. And when we're looking at our dates with school and breaks, we're able, they give us a lot of time off, which is really nice. It's a work-life balance, which is great. This past, we had our 2-week break. A group of us, we went to Cairns and went Sundays. We went skydiving and scuba diving and had a great time doing Anki on the beach. We were able to incorporate a lot of it. So I highly recommend. One of the reasons I chose UQ is to kind of have an opportunity to travel even while still going to medical school, which a lot of people aren't super lucky about. So I've tried very hard to take advantage of it. There's so many amazing areas just within Brisbane, an hour or two away, the zoo, koala sanctuary, the beaches. So yeah, definitely take advantage of it.
Great, thank you. I think we might be running out of time, so I might have to start wrapping up. So I'll go around the panel and kind of ask what piece of advice you would give to people who are going to be moving to Brisbane next year. Shannon, can I start with you?
I think one piece of advice would be, I think the coming into Brisbane and medical school, particularly in UQ, um, a huge part of my friend group is mainly in the medical cohort, and my social circle is mainly the medical cohort. And I do think that the school has given us a lot and a lot of opportunities to like socialize, you know, and to get closer to everyone. So my opinion is like what Savannah and Kira said as well. Don't get too sucked up in studying. It's very easy to do that. I was kind of like that in my first few months, and now I'm not, and it's great, you know. So take full advantage of that, and you know, just go out, make friends, get outside of your comfort zone a little bit, and try to participate as much as you can. You know, in UQ Med, there's like sports day where we, you know, at the start of semester, there's sports day where we get to meet everyone, you know, and have a few drinks. Um, there's also Med Review. I made a lot of friends there as well. So there's a lot of events where you can do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Pranav.
Yeah, I don't know. My general advice is, as everyone else said, like try not, as odd as this sounds, before you start medicine, once you come here, even by default, if you do the bare minimum, it still occupies such a huge percentage of your life that you really should try your best not to let it take over your entire life. I think it's pretty easy to get into the mood like, oh, if I don't do this, like I won't pass or all of that. And you eventually just sort of spiral. It's really easy to do in medicine. We do have a great support team, but it's also great to like try and establish your own support, especially the first few months. As someone who's moved to like 5 different countries, the first few months, hands down, by far the most important time. Get out of your comfort zone, go out there and socialize. Those first few weeks, go in there when people are still willing to meet and get to know other people, when everyone else is still feeling as lost as you are. That is the time, like that is the your opportunity to capitalize and try and find people you get along with. Just because having that network, whether it even just be for like class stuff, but especially to do stuff outside of class, no matter what your hobbies are, you can still join like UQ at largest clubs and stuff like that to find like I did a debate back home in Canada, like collegiate debate. And so I came here, and for the first little bit before medicine slowly started to take over, I joined the debate team just to give me something to do and to get out there and stuff like that. And then just sort of general moving advice. Uh, Moving is very stressful, especially moving to a different country, especially if you're coming from somewhere really far away from home. Like pretty much when I first got here, I knew no one within like 5 time zones of Brisbane, right? And so it was like by the time I hit 2 p.m., that was it. I knew no one to talk to from 2 p.m. till like midnight when everyone back in North America will wake up. So it can be pretty isolating, but take it slow, take it one day at a time. And just try your best. Try not to let it overwhelm you. That's sort of my general advice there.
Thank you, Kira.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo what everyone else said. Definitely get out there. It's kind of a once in a lifetime experience to be able to live somewhere new and different and be able to like participate in the program. So I think really, do your best to put yourself out there as much as you can and kind of socialize and get to know as many people as you can. Also outside of like necessarily an international cohort, I know for the Oshners in particular, because they're really awesome about setting stuff up like specifically for Oshners to get us to know each other and stuff like that. But some of my best friends here are Australians that I've met just like through school and through my classes and things like that also. And so I think like pushing yourself outside of that comfort zone as well. And then from a practical standpoint, I think if you can just be as organized as you can with like paperwork and all of that kind of stuff, make sure you have a system for kind of organizing all of that, all your visas, your background checks, all the kind of like tick boxes that you need when you're moving here. Just try and be as organized with that as possible, because there's a lot of it, and it got confusing on what needed to go in when. So yeah.
Thank you, Savannah.
So yeah, pretty much the same thing. I'll start with more of the practical stuff. I created a checklist for myself with dates and like kind of what to do and when. So starting a bank account, then getting the phone and kind of going through that. I highly recommend that. I also really think on more of a kind of just life advice, definitely come in, be brave. Everybody's in your same position. Everybody's wanting to make friends. It is daunting moving. I understand that. I moved a lot growing up, but take advantage of the first month of school, in particular, the transition to MD program. You have a lot of downtime to meet people. They have a lot of events. Put yourself out there, take advantage of Australia. It is such a great place. And really amazing people. We're all moving here. You don't really know a lot of people. I've met some of the best people in the world through this program. So definitely, it's stressful. You'll have some anxiety coming into it, but just remember, everybody is in your same shoes. All the second years really rely on them. They've been through the process. They kind of know the ins and outs. And just create kind of a routine for yourself. Make sure you schedule in some, whether it's like social studies, where you're like in a group and studying, going over stuff, doing Anki while watching Love Island, like Kara said. Create time for yourself. It's a very stressful process, but if you prioritize yourself and kind of relaxing a little bit, it'll make the process really enjoyable and really fulfilling.
Thank you. Lucky last, Susie.
Wow, I think such amazing tips there. I think they've covered so much. But yeah, I think from my perspective, it's just be kind to yourself, take one day at a time. It's a really big and new, exciting experience. Things won't fall into place straight away, and there will be some natural ups and downs as you adjust. So just knowing that it's not always going to feel amazing. There will be some challenging times, but it's actually a journey of growth, both as a person as in a student, being, studying in Australia. It's such an amazing opportunity. And I think you'll look back on it as one of the best times of your life. So just knowing that it's a journey. Yeah.
Great. Well, I'll bring it to an end there. So thank you everyone for your advice. And I look forward to meeting as many of the attendees in Brisbane in next year. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.